Hey, we're here, KEXU 96.1 FM LP, right here in East Oakland, and I'm the black crippled in your ear. Who's this?
That's PNN, not CNN, people. Yeah, we the poor people's revolutionary news hour. That means you're going to get the hard medicine, the real truth, and everything that they try to sweep under the corporate rug. Yeah, I am the poverty scholar, that house's mama, that house's daughter. All the people you don't want to see, never want to be, look away from me. What you going to do, arrest me? I'm in your city. And yeah, I'm rocking my jailhouse attire because orange ain't the new black, whatever Hollywood likes to sell on you. No, it's because me and my mama did poverty crimes for the crime of being houseless in this stolen, occupied Ohlone Lashon territory. That's what's up.
So who's our guest today, Tiny?
Well, we are proud and blessed. First of all, just want to center ourselves in the fact that we are on this already occupied Lashon Ohlone territory, and one of the issues is that
we're low power. It's still recording.
One of the issues that's really important and really serious is that our folks in this unhoused nation are living in the streets, the street corners, the doorways. But the reality is that this was already occupied territory. But also the reality is that Mama Earth is under attack, and that all of our land liberators and our land warriors are actually working to try to bring the real medicine of Mother Earth and the real truth of Mother Earth's destruction and liberation up. And so way that affects unhoused folks directly is that arguably we're the first ones impacted. Poor people are the first ones impacted by this so-called climate change. I like to call it Mama Earth's destruction. And that means poor people from all over Mama Earth, right? That means our island nations, like my mama from Taino Nation, Puerto Rico, and all of our brothers and sisters in Haiti and the DR and all these places and spaces that they would rather sell to corporations to be hotels for the rich, white, and wealthy, rather than us poor people lifting ourselves up and being able to live on our indigenous territory. So in that vein, we have the blessing of bringing on a powerful Pacific Island scholar, the beautiful sister to Poor Magazine, and from the Tonga Nation, Loa Dumitolo. Come on up, Lola.
Yeah, welcome to KEXU 96.1.
All right, PNN.
All right.
Thank you so much, Tiny. Thank you so much, Leroy.
For sure. So, yes, can you tell listeners and viewers actually, who you are and who you represent first, and then we'll get into what you're doing.
Yeah. Malo apito. Malo lele kainga kokunga golo ni maitolu. Very humbled to be here on Ohlone land, and my name is Loa. I'm a Tongan woman. I'm an activist. I'm an educator, and I'm a poet. And wow, I'm in a room of these people. This is what they do too. So I love hopefulness and PNN. That's right. This is not CNN. The Poor Network. And so I'm so proud to be here. And so I'm a supporter, a collaborator, an accomplice. What other things are we together? Yes.
That's right. So I know that what's coming up right now is this big march in action for Mother Earth. And I do want to say that oftentimes what's forgotten in a lot of these movements is the story of peoples in poverty, of peoples with disabilities, of people in the incarceration nation. And I know that Loa, as a fellow poverty scholar, that is not what you do. So maybe first you could just talk about what the march, why you're doing it, break down some of that, and then maybe get into the ways in which this is not going to be like that this is indigenous land.
Thank you so much, Tiny. Thank you for Leroy. Thank you, Leroy, for also having me here. So Jerry Brown, the governor of California, and representatives of the United Nations, and a lot of corporations who are also embedded with them, have called a global climate change action summit that's to be held on September 12th through 15th. And so because of that, there's also people who are on. When I first heard of this, and I was asked to be brought on board, I was like, okay, so where do I fit in? And I was like, oh no, I fit in with the activists. That's how you guys want me to come into this conference? Oh man, we're losing. This is the kind of feeling I had because actually, big shout out to my sister Fui Lupe, who actually did an amazing job organizing the Pacific Islander contingent. Who, with the Marshallese youth, they walked in front of the Indigenous bloc at the Climate Change March in 2015. Which is great. Thank you so much. And Fui is the one who brought me in because, as you know, she's working on her dissertation. Yeah. And so she said, Lord, can you do this? Because Leroy, as you said, am I traveling? So no, not right now. So I'm staying right now. So I'm brought in right now to come and do this. And then, that was my first reaction. Like, damn, I gotta be always on the losing side, man. But we don't want to stay that way though. I mean, sure, we feel that way many times, right, brothers and sisters, but we don't want to stay there with that kind of feeling. And so I think that's a big question to ask. Like, so this has been called by Jerry Brown in the United Nations. But when we're talking about East Oakland, when we're talking about there's a lot of kids, for instance, who go to Castlemont, right, who are Pacific Islander. So when I'm talking about the Pacific, I'm talking about the southern region of the Pacific that includes Micronesia, Polynesia, and Melanesia. So, I mean, people know them like some popular nations from there because of our migration policies for the U.S. is like, of course, Hawaii, because of their statehood, their unfortunate statehood, and Samoa, Tonga, Fiji, and now many places because of the rising seas like the Marshall Islands and other places. So that's a big question I was thinking about in coming and talking to both of you. How do we talk about climate change in a way where like I was feeling like, wow, I'm part of that population. I'm part of Pacific Islanders. I'm part of the of activism of kind of like there's a divide between us. There's like people who are for climate change, who say they're climate change and are very visible. And those of us who are, you could say, communities in the front line of environmental devastation and degradation, and we see this every day. So how do we approach it so we are also visible and we have a voice, or we at least you guys feel empowered, right? We feel empowered. So that's a big thing.
So also just to get it clear, Loa, when we're talking about the impact on the island nations. I mean, we're right on the brink of this hurricane that's about to hit our families in Hawaii, right? I know that Mother Earth moves in mysterious ways too, and let's not put everything up to white science. But maybe you could make those connections. Like, what are the ways in which our island nations are dealing with Mother Earth destruction?
Right. Well, before I came, I asked the Lishana Ohlone leader, Karina Gold, for a Twitter post that she made recently. I think it was just yesterday, where she was asking to please also talk about water, California water, and how it's and Jerry Brown's Governor Jerry Brown's policies and diverting the water systems into agribusiness and even people to big cities. And how that's devastating the Sacramento and San Joaquin Delta. So and in there she wrote how indigenous people like the Lishana Ohlone, that's the indigenous people of Berkeley, Oakland, Albany, how they look at the environment in a very different way than capitalist and settler colonial societies do, which is what we're dealing with. Sometimes you guys, like when I was thinking about what to say, I was thinking about, I'm sorry, is it the comedian, the African-American comedian, D.H. Hughley, is that his name? He had, I just saw he had a post where he was saying, he had an interview and he was saying that the people who created racism, who how do I put this? The people who caused all these, who caused the destruction of racism cannot be the same people who come and say that we can solve it, right? Who are the decision makers in how to solve racism? They can't. Those people who created that, they can't be the same ones, So maybe they could be ones that we could work together with, but they can't be the same ones who make those. And so I hope my point is clear with that. So that's what so when it comes down for Pacific Islanders and many indigenous communities, is that simple too for us. colonizers, those who colonized our lands, our rivers, our waters, and our skies, cannot be the same people who come and give us a solution for climate change.
Thank you.
Because we're, through all these years of colonizations, we made it through.
Right.
We made it through not only with our lands. I want to bring up that amazing, beautiful thing that happened in Aotearoa, that's New Zealand, where the Whanganui River was given personhood.
Wow.
But that's a 140-year struggle for the indigenous people of that tribe in the North Island of New Zealand. And finally they won that with hard struggle, as you guys know, here in Poor. And what does that mean? That means that their river has personhood. And what does that mean for a river to have personhood? It means when you come to destroy the river, when you come to divert the water of the river so you could have more almond milk, so the almond trees can have more water.
Ooh,
Everyone,
yeah.
I do love almond milk. Trader Joe's has the cheapest.
Yes,
So when that happens, actually, with now that the river is a person, what that means is that you're actually not just hurting the river, you're hurting the whole entire Whanganui tribe. So it's not even just one person, it's not even one Whanganui person that you're hurting, say it's just their leader or their president, right? Or their prime minister. No, you're actually hurting the whole tribe and what it means for the whole tribe. And so that's a destruction of a whole tribe. So if you look at it, to hurt the river is to cause genocide, right? And so that's the same thing that I feel that's happening in the Pacific. And that's just my point from the beginning with connecting to D.H. Hughley is that we as Pacific Islanders, talking about the Pacific itself, we have to be the ones to come up with our solutions. And actually the point is we are coming up with our solutions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We are, the way we live. I just came, do I have a minute
Please,
just
talk about
to throw this out?
Please.
When I just lived in Attu in the Cook Islands, I'm very proud. It's in making the nations, it became part of the Cook Islands. But you can see Attu was also a place of its own history, even a dialect of its own language. And although it's only today, I think the largest population has been about 2,000 plus. But today, because of the migration, people going to New Zealand and Australia, it's around 400 people. And and what do they do there? They have a lot of subsistence living is what they, the English words for that. But really, it's to us as indigenous people, what subsistence living is. It's just living in the ancient ways. It means farming, right? Taro farming with using our springs that come from the mountains and come down into the fresh waters and the lakes. And so even in my short time in Attu, I saw that the Lake Teroto where we had our taro patches, actually, which is a freshwater lake, is 99% salinity. So that really threatens the taro patches and the future of the self-determination of the people to be able to grow their own food and eat it instead of having from New Zealand, being imported in. So things like that. I read when I was down there in the Cook Islands, I read that there's a company in China that is readily and very excited to sell the Cook Islanders fish, that the access fish that they caught, because they caught so much fish that they can't take all the way back to China to sell. They're willing to sell it to the Cook Islanders. But because of the trade rules or something, they have to take it back to China, freeze it, take it back to China, and sell it back from there.
Wow.
So I just thought, wow, that totally takes the self-determination of the people to make dinner, right?
Right.
And of course it goes deeper than that, because. So we can talk about the loss of the taro patches. We can talk about the overfishing of the seas. And then one of the other things that happens, of course, is I lived in Attu with what happened with colonization, because the overfishing of the seas is from huge countries, that have nothing we can't see each other, where we don't have a relationship. We don't have a sacred relationship where we call in a vow between each other, where we could be accountable and responsible for each other and each other's grandchildren in the future, and even to our past, like with our ancestors. So that's what happens when these big fishing companies come and to these small, to not even small places. I mean, the ocean, in fact, the Pacific Ocean that we live in is a huge place, right?
Right.
So they come to our huge ocean and overfish the ocean. Yeah. So. Anything else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I mean,
Yellow?
I'm blown away by the power, just of also of our liberation, and I really
Yeah.
want to step back for a second and say, again, you're listening to Poor News Network, PNN, not CNN, KEXU 96.1 FM LP, the Poor People's Revolutionary News Hour, and we have the blessing of having sister, extended family member Loa Numitolo on here in the studio with myself and Leroy. And what we're talking about is Mama Earth destruction and liberation. One of the things you said, and you kind of went over it quickly, is that we're already doing that. This whole idea of quote unquote these words that are thrown on poor people that are intentionally criminal and intentionally fetishizing, like subsistence, even. Like, what does that mean? Actually, that's thrown subsistence farmers and
as if it's a bad thing to do.
Right, exactly.
It's a bad. So it's really just our ancient practices of farming, and that's bad. Yeah.
And I was just wanting you to expand a little bit on that. So what does that really look like in our island nations? That means that we're making enough food for our families to eat, our communities to
Yes.
eat?
So that means you're making enough food so you can have it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day. You have fresh organic food. Encouraging farmers in the islands not to use pesticides, and also, of course, joining the movements around the world for indigenous people to stop using pesticides and to fight against companies like Monsanto. And so exactly, Tiny. So we're already doing these things. What I wanted to touch on too is another thing. It's about, I think is why the New Zealand Maoris fought so hard to make Whanganui, the river, to be a person, to let the world know that this is an ancestor. Because as I was in Atu and I saw the changes in climate change, especially with the hurricane seasons never ending.
Yeah.
It used to be, from September until April. Now come on, man. It's like, here we are coming back to September. In August, it already started. It just continues, and that's really felt in the islands. And but one of the things about devastation about colonization, which is I'm making that link. I'm saying that the reason we have climate change is because people came in, they forced our ways of life to end, and they hurt our spirits. That sounds corny, right? How can I say it in a better way? So with the migration, because the language, for instance, in Atu was the Maori language. It was the kids who were growing up in the 50s and 40s. They had to. I mean, after the Christians coming, they had to stop using their language, and then they had to go into the government schools. And so, of course, they were taught these ideas that their farming practices, weren't important, and they had to all migrate to New Zealand and Australia, which they have done en masse. And so what I saw that was also devastating in a way with climate change in Atu is how the older people and even young people in their 40s are so devastated that they don't have any brothers, sisters left to help with the taro patches. Because it's a lot of work, to help with weeding the mats. There are people who used to make what in Tonga we call ingatu, but tapa cloth, and there's not a lot of people left to do that. There's and then I remember and so there's that heartbrokenness of that mass migration out of their islands, and no one left and perhaps no one left to be together with, to where a lot of people, a lot of elders only living by themselves because their families have gone to get their young people in education because they feel it is more important. And so the older generations and all the people who are left in the island are fighting climate change by keeping their languages, by keeping the taro patches, by keeping their weaving practices, whatever tapa skills they have left, making that. And so that's how people are fighting climate change and being in touch with their families around the world, keeping that language the native languages going, adapting to it by using also English to be able to communicate their love for each other and their responsibility and accountability to keep the land. So all our people at home, so climate change is a big part for us, even if we live here in East Oakland.
Right.
It's still a big part for us because, as I was talking about the river in Aotearoa, our whanua, our land in Tongan, and even in the New Zealand Maori word whenua, it means land. And you know what else, you guys?
Yeah.
What that word means is our umbilical cord.
Ah.
So the word for umbilical cord and land is the same. And what you do when you're a baby is that you bury your umbilical cord in your land. So you can always, like my son Nico has too, that even if you come to Berkeley or go to Santa Cruz, you can always remember where you're from. So that's the ways that we're fighting climate change, and that's how I want to talk about it as Pacific people, because we can't always talk about it. We must always remember we need to keep it on the ground. But for our people and an everyday struggle as immigrants, just trying to even houseless people many times. Especially, of course, with the rent and the housing here in the Bay Area is so expensive, and people having to figure out how to live. I don't know. I think a lot of Pacific Islanders have many families to one house, right? And so, what does climate change mean to us when we're struggling through that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to close out and go into the next segment, but I want to say two things. First of all, that like Mother Teresa used to say, in this colonized, stolen, occupied land, we have poverty of the spirit. So when we're unhoused folks, and as people watching and listening should know, we're all different colors and cultures. And we've been intentionally separated from our cultures, our indigena, our spirit, our ocean, our land. And so what happens is we become a part of the scarcity plan. And part of what we're really actually talking to Loa about as well is to decolonize our minds as poor people. So before we close out, speaking to the unhoused nation, the imprisoned nation, to the prison strike right now, Shay, and many of our Pacific Islanders behind those plantation bars. Can you tell us what the marches are and the dates? And we have about a minute.
Yeah, so please come out to the march September 8th at 9 o'clock is a safe time to say, San Francisco Embarcadero. See you there, September 8th, 9 o'clock.
And then in West Berkeley for our sisters and brothers in Ohlone Lishan Nation.
September 9th, let's have indigenous people from all over the world coming to the march who support the Ohlone Lishan at their shell mound, the oldest settlement in the Bay Area. So
we're talking 5,000 years old. Shout out to Karina if you're listening.
Shout
and
out Karina.
All the powerful folks. And that's at 1900 4th Street?
Yeah, 4th Street, yes.
Right. And for more information, you can find us on FaceCrack, but also check on Poor Magazine/calendar. We will be putting this information up. Any last words? Say goodbye to your fabulous fans.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Yeah. And let's just stay together.
And Loa is also is a teacher at Decolonize Academy, so she'll be bringing her powerful knowledge because we believe that everybody of their own culture should teach their own history. So we're going to take about a 30-second, maybe 50-second break for all you out there in YouTube Landia and KEXU 96.1 FM. We'll be hearing a little music, and then we'll be right back to Poor People's Revolutionary News Hour. That's PNN, not CNN, family.